Are you ready?
Ah, sunshine.
Yeah.
Yes. We're sitting across the Columbia River from the Portland International Airport, and it's so nice to hear a plane go over, huh?
There's not very many of them flying
No.
in the day and age we live, but at some point in time they'll get going again. So
Yeah, we even hear some boats going by, so that's kind of cool.
yeah, so the river is lapping along the shore, and you might not be surprised that there might be a train go by. I don't know. So
Trains, planes, and automobiles where we're standing, but see, you can see that nobody is around us.
yeah.
So we're social distancing.
Yeah, we are social distanced. For sure.
So it seems like the last couple podcasts and videos have been kind of, I don't know, I don't want to say like a Debbie Downer stuff, but trying to be positive during this COVID time.
Because actually when we come through the other side, you will have made choices to change, make the best of it, or maybe relapse into old habits, or maybe learn a new habit. I've been enjoying working on a puzzle.
Oh, I thought I was a puzzle person, but I don't think and this is even a Mr. Rogers puzzle, which you think would bring some calm and peace, but
Yeah.
oh, get that piece in there.
Yeah. Brenda has the hammer method if it doesn't fit. So there's going to be some really big divots in our dining room table. Anyways.
So what's one thing you've been studying a lot and talking to clients a lot about lately? You're sharing with me, and you said it so succinctly, and you said it in a way that even the counselor reads it, I could understand it. So can you kind of give?
Well, it's plain language. I mean, it's kind of back to this whole point of when you come through the other side of a challenging time, have you grown? Have you matured? Have you learned how to control yourself, control your emotions? And a lot of folks just kind of fall back into old patterns, and instead of working through the emotions take over.
I don't think I ever slow down enough to think through my what do I do, what cycles I go through.
Yeah, well, I think one of the big things I've kind of learned in studying this restorative therapy and the pain and peace cycle is I was working with a client just a couple weeks ago, and I forwarded them something to read, and I thought I'd read it, and they picked up something that I was like, oh yeah, that's good. And maybe I'd mentioned this just recently, that anxiety is a response, not a emotion. And often, sometimes when people get so upset about what's going on in the world right now, and the social distancing and this and that and the other thing, they respond and they respond and they respond, and until they're totally wound up as tight as a drum, and realize, hold on a second, when did you slow down and stop reacting and actually begin to control the reaction? Because it's not an emotion, it's a reaction to what's going on around you. And then if one doesn't slow it down, it becomes part of your emotional state, and that can really turn on people. So
what's this pain cycle you were sharing with me about? How break that down for me?
Well, the pain cycle, as I've been learning, the actual theory was developed by Terry Hargrave and his wife Sharon Hargrave. They are down at Pepperdine University, Sharon is, and then Dr. Hargrave is at Fuller Theological Seminary. Just delightful people. And one of our dear friends, Ron Deal, recommended that I attend one of their training sessions, and anytime Ron says to go do something, I do go. I go do it. Like he was the one that really pushed me to go back to grad school. I said, sure, Ron's telling me, I'll go. Like, what could be wrong? I mean, I just really respect and love Ron. So it was nice to meet the Hargraves. But this concept around restorative therapy and the peace and pain and peace cycle, or pain and truth cycle, is that people get into circumstances such as anxiety, and they're fearful, and they begin to feel uncertain, unsafe, anxious, controlling. They begin to start feeling a certain way, and then because they can't seem to get it into control, they begin to try to cope with it. And by coping, they take actions of which they can isolate, or they can get snarky and angry and withdraw. And sometimes they can really turn into addictive behaviors, trying to cope with the emotions, because they are in a cycle of pain. And nobody likes to be in pain.
No. So can you kind of break it down? You said there were kind of like 4 steps to the pain cycle. I really like the way you
Well, when I'm
broke it
working
down.
when I'm working with people, it's like we learn the first 2 steps. How am I feeling? And then what do I do? Because I'm feeling a certain way.
Yeah.
As I work in that situation, for them to really understand what their pain cycle is all about, they've reacted. Say, this is how I feel. Let's say, for instance, I am feeling anxious, and therefore I get controlling.
Okay.
Well, if I'm anxious and I'm getting controlling, it's probably because something has caused me to lose balance about being safe, and that I can't trust or can't be trusted. And so in that situation, I go to a controlling behavior because I feel out of safe. Let's say, for instance, I'm anxious and I start blaming other people. Well, in that case, I'm anxious, but my reaction now is blame, because it's somebody else's fault that I feel anxious. Well, in that case, it could be because I feel like there's been a loss or an imbalance of being loved, accepted. Those 2 avenues take us down into this pain cycle, and then typically after I do that and I take that action, I usually feel kind of crummy about myself.
Yeah.
I feel kind of like, oh gosh, I feel out of control. I feel like, oh, even worse, I'm not enough, or something that I had a message that I told myself or somebody told me way back that gets driven way down deep inside. And then from there, I try to fix it with another action, which then leads me back into the pain cycle.
Okay, so first step of the pain cycle is
How do I feel? What
How
am
do
I
I feel?
feeling? What
Okay.
am I feeling?
second step is
What do I do? What are the actions that I take?
good or bad.
Good or, well,
Yeah.
typically
Mostly
they're bad.
bad.
Typically
Okay.
they're bad because I'm reacting, trying to get something in the nature of controlling or
Okay.
feeling
And
secure.
then the third
So
step
when you move to
is-
the third step, typically then that is the issue of the truth or peace. It's moving from step 1 and 2, here's how I feel and here's what I normally do.
Yeah.
Then it's moving into the truth, which will bring me peace. And then the 4th step is, what am I going to do differently?
So to back up to the peace step, what could I say to myself if
Moving from step 2 to step
Yeah.
3, that's like stepping over the Grand Canyon.
why?
Because in a lot of times people kind of go, I don't know, I know the truth about myself, but I don't feel it. And that they somehow or another they can't get it from their head down to their heart.
Disconnected.
There's the disconnect.
Yeah.
And therefore not only do they might believe the truth,
Yeah.
but they aren't able to say the truth about who they are, their abilities, their worth, their value, their sense of belonging and identity. And because when I do know step 3, here is the truth,
Yeah.
that tends to bring a degree of peace.
Yeah.
That then I can do something differently. I can
So-
act differently.
And that's and at that point it's a choice to act differently.
Well, that's the
Right?
beauty of kind of what I was learning, even because interestingly, when I went through the training with Dr. Hargrave, there were about 40 counselors, social workers in the room, and he was leading up to wanting a guinea pig. Oh, I mean a volunteer. And I knew it was coming. So literally before he finished his sentence, I was up out of my seat and went and sat in front of 40 other counselors to have this experience. And what I learned, that because he briefly took me through that process, but for me, I learned by experience.
Yeah.
Because once
Yeah.
I've got it inside of my gut, it's like, oh, I know what that feels like. And when I know what that feels like, and I know that it's true both in my head and my heart,
Yeah.
like I have the comment from my old friend John. I won't say his last
Don't
name.
go
I won't
off.
go there.
Just keep going here.
But the place of it is that in that moment when I believed it in my head, you
Yeah.
need to say it out of your mouth. Because the
yeah.
point of it is the scriptural. So a man speaketh, so is he. So a man thinketh in his heart, he's going to say. The heart speaks.
Yeah.
And that's the key is that when the head and the heart are in conflict, the heart will always win. Always.
Yeah.
Because I might know it, but if I don't feel it, I ain't
Yeah,
doing
you're not
it.
moving.
But when
Yeah.
I begin to believe the truth and it begins to bring me peace, I cannot combat one thought with another. I have to say the truth. I have to confess it.
So if somebody has trouble finding what the truth is about themselves, how do they find that?
Well, I really
Can
think
they
that
go to a
that's...
trusted friend?
I think they
or-
could go to a trusted friend to a degree, but I think that's where you really do need to sit with somebody who's maybe a trained counselor or maybe even a pastor, because this particular modality, if you want to call it, is something. Again, I'm kind of doing an advertisement for the Hargraves here. They have a book called Relate Strong, and it is written to pastors and counselors, but often, more times than not, I share it with some of my clients, because it's like, just put it in context for yourself.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
but to have somebody help you get to that truth, you really do need an objective ear. Because
yeah,
often,
especially if you can't see yourself, you know.
yeah, you can't
the
see
trees
yourself.
through the forest.
Right, and I think this is where I sometimes sit and talk with one person in a couple, and I hear what's going on, and I realize that it's causing them to go into pain, and it's because their spouse or their partner is in a pain as well. Because typically, when one person's in pain, potentially the other one's going to be too, and they start doing this like two magnets. They push away from each other. If they're not polarized correctly, they
yeah.
push each other away, because they're both not safe. They're not feeling loved. And therefore, we go into these old patterns until somebody stops and goes, I'm feeling anxious. And when I feel anxious, I normally go into controlling behavior. But the truth is, I actually I'm actually safe. I belong. In my case, I know that I belong to Jesus, and I know that I am secure, and therefore that causes me to know I'm safe. Therefore, I'm going to stay engaged, and I'm not going to run away, and I'm going to stay calm. That may actually then cause the other person to stop. Now I've entered into a cycle of peace and truth, because I know who I am. And
Not like the water behind you.
not
which
like
is
the
going
water
crazy.
behind me, no. But the point of it is that other person,
Yeah.
they're going to still do what they're going to do.
Yeah.
If they turn and help me, that's co-regulation. If I do it myself, that's self-regulation. And regulation is a big fancy word for self-control. I have the power to
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah.
Because
yeah.
I know of the love of Christ.
Yeah. That's good. That's good. Okay, so recap. Give us the 4 steps again of the pain cycle.
So when I'm in that process and something's coming up, because there's always something coming up, I say how I feel. Then I say what I normally do, which those two things usually have roots in not feeling safe, not feeling trust, and not feeling love. And that then leads me usually to a second step of trying to cope with that in some fashion that usually is not healthy. And and a lot of times is going to turn you off. It's going to offend you. It's going to push you away.
Okay.
And so step 1, here's how I'm feeling. Step 2, here's what I normally do. And then step 3, that's the big one. Here's the truth, and this is what brings me peace, because this is true.
Yeah.
And then the 4th step is, here's what I'm going to do differently. I'm going to take a different action.
Because of the truth.
Because of
Yeah.
the truth.
Yeah.
Again, it's that simple concept again scripturally that says that when we know the truth, that's what sets us
It's
free.
gonna set you free. Yeah, I was thinking
That's
of
what's
that.
going to set you free. And so your truth could be something, because typically step 2 of it and how you're feeling about yourself, there's a message below that you have been telling yourself for possibly a really long time.
Wow.
And that's why the battle is so difficult between step 2 and step 3.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. I think I got it. You guys got it?
If not, call
Anyway,
me.
yeah, call us or have a conversation between the two of you about your pain cycles, and but don't do it when you're in the pain cycle.
Yeah, I
do
think
it when things are
Yeah.
are nice.
And
Calm.
I may have done halfway justice to this, but If you go onto YouTube and you look up on YouTube Terry and Sharon Hargrave and just
I'll just put a link in this video below.
And just type in
Yeah.
pain cycle, you'll get Dr. Hargrave. He's the guy who created it. But the more and more that I read and study this concept, it really has its bearings in the gospel.
Yeah, that makes
but
sense.
it also has bearing in good psychological counseling as well. And so I love how he's put that all together.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Good word. Well, put that in your pipe and smoke it, as I would say. That's a lot of, once again, good conversation. And I think especially in that step 2, when you can recognize the dance, or how you're, whatever you want to label it, how you react, whether it be being anxious, being mad, you get angry, explosive, you regress, whatever you do, to be able to label it and go, that's what I'm doing. That's just going to make it that much easier to talk about it. Because I always say that when something that's in the dark, it has a place to fester and it can't heal and get healthy. Where if you bring this stuff out in the open, and hopefully it will bring safety between the two of you if you can come alongside each other to help understand for each other. Yes.
So it's kind of like this concept. If you can't say it, you can't overcome it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You have to be able to confess it. It is with the confession from our hearts that leads us unto salvation, you know, Romans 8. Yeah. And so when we speak the truth, that's when the power is released. And when it's connected to love for ourselves and others, then even more the conclusion that there becomes justice, balance to ourselves and to those that we are in relationship with.
Yeah.
But it is all founded in love. For ourselves and for those that are around us that we truly want to love well.
Yeah, yeah. Amen. Amen. Love it. Hopefully go outside and enjoy some sun today.
Yeah. There's the
So
Columbia River. It's kind
nice.
of calm. I'm surprised it's so calm, but it's because there's not a lot of boats out there where there normally are.
Yeah, it is a lot quieter.
So anyhow,
All right.
we will let you go. Again,
Stay safe.
bid you well. And if you ain't got the marriage,
You ain't got nothing. It's the
God bless
best
you
thing
all.
you can give your kids
Right.
and your rest of community. Take care. Bye-bye.
bye-bye.